welcome back to 33 Mile Garage. Well, in my last video I said you may never see this car again. Shut this ticking time bomb off. Yeah. I am now going to pull the engine out of it, tear it down, and see what's wrong with it. Alright, here we go. We got the car up on jack stands ready to go. I am going to try to get this out of here in about 2.5 hours. I'm going to try to give you every single detail I can, every bolt that I take out. I'm going to tell you what size it is, how I took it out. Quickest and easiest way. Hard to get to stuff. I'm going to show you how to do it. It should take about 2.5 hours, I'm guessing, maybe a little bit less. If I run into problems, if I break something, maybe a little bit more, but that is the plan. Let's find out if I'm lying or not. First up, battery out. 10mm wrench. Watch yourself, make sure that you don't ground your wrench out. Battery mounts. Deep well socket will get 10mm again. Get up underneath. Battery is out of the car. We're going to get this washer bottle box out of the way. There are 2 clips. All you got to do with these guys is push them in. They just squeeze right there and they come right out. On this other clip, the green clip, very top of it, squeeze that guy in and they pop right out. 2 10mm nuts. Right out. Throw. Lift this guy up. And what you're going to have is 2 hoses there and there. 8mm hose clamps, top one, main one, the bottom intercooler one, 8mm again, a 12mm, pop this guy, 12mm. That's going to be the bolts holding the intercooler in. This hose right here, going to pop out of there. I've got this one zip tied. I'm going to have to snip that with a pair of dikes. That one comes out of there. This one right here, forward, that comes out of there. This line here's got to pop off also. Alright, so that frees everything up. Off the turbo. And intercooler's out of there. There are 2 10mm bolts for these 2 brackets. I just broke them both off. I'm going to have to drill out and retap these 2 holes for them. That's going to free the radiator up there. Alright, take the coolant tank out. All we got is 2 10mm screws holding it in. Back those guys off. There's not too much room in here. Take the drain tube out. Get out of there. And that just slides into the bottom. Pop the upper radiator hose off. 10mm again. I will probably break this thing. Yep. Not going to come off. So we're going to plan B on this guy. If you don't have a plan B, you're not getting this done in 2 hours. But put a steel plate between where you're cutting. You see I already cut into that. That could have been my radiator. Don't do stupid things and you won't get stupid results. Believe me, I'm the master of doing stupid things. There's this tube that runs on the back side of the radiator. There is no need to remove that. You can leave it on, but we do have to disconnect it right here. So off of here while we're there. Spin him off. A little bit of radiator fluid. Make sure you got a bucket underneath. Stop. Lower radiator hose. 8mm. Pop that guy out of there. Come back here. And then this always sucks. It makes a mess and gets all over the place. I'm gonna go wipe the radiator fluid off my hands. I don't like that very much. On your fans, you're gonna have 2 different wiring harnesses, one on the left side, one on the right side. I am on the passenger side right now. There's a clip right there. You just push down and pull. And they come right out. If there's crap in them, they're really difficult to get out. If they're clean, they're pretty easy to push down and squeeze out. And that clip comes right out of there. And there's schmutz in my mouth. So that's it for the 2 radiator harnesses. All right, we got 2 engine mount nuts. They're 14mm. They're here and here on the other side of either side of the engine. Loosen that one up, and then right over here, there's another one. Him loose, get both these off of here. And keep in mind when you pull the engine out, these are studs going through, so you're going to have to see how the studs going through there, and it's going to have to go up about 1.5 inches to clear. Not a big deal, but something to keep in mind. Come out a little bit. Hose is off. You see I had to pull it off those posts. I'll show you on the bottom of the radiator how those go. Just pull up. Again, with that radiator hose in the way, it's going to be a little tricky to get past there, but that's it for the radiator. And then you can see on the bottom of the radiator, it's got these two posts. Those go down inside the receiver on the bottom of the core support. That holds the bottom of the radiator in. I'm gonna get this air box out of the way. Map sensor in the air box. There's usually a red piece that goes across there that you slide back, push that clip down, slide this wire off, and then two 8mm clamps. Back these guys off. We'll get this tube out of the way. The box, pop those coolant lines off, get those out of the way, just throw those on top of the engine. We've got a couple clips. Snap those clips off the air box. Two there. Allow this top of the air box to pop off. Get him out of the way. The air filter out of the way. That air filter is dirty, man. To get this air box out of the bottom here, there is a 12mm bolt down there. Once the other 12mm bolt comes out, now it comes out. I'm going to watch that power steering line underneath. Pull that out of there. So you got the two 12mm bolts holding the bottom side in. Then you got a hose and that fastener that holds it in there. You want to make sure you put all this stuff back together, because man, it sure makes it easier when it's time to put it back together. Off. Nope. Just a wiring harness underneath there. What we want to do is just push the clip in right in front, push that guy in, pull them out from the back. Just go through all of them. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes you got to push pretty darn hard on these clips to get them out. It's a little bit trickier than the other ones. The other ones just have clear tabs that are easy to pop. That one's a little bit harder to pop out. So all three of those come out of there. Plastic piece out of the way. Again, two 10mm bolts. One that went through there, one that goes through here. This one's actually a 10mm nut. Gotta get this plastic piece out of the way. Instead of taking these throttle cables off here and adjusting them, I'm just gonna take that bracket off there. 10mm. You can just let these come back around the top side now. You just twist right out the bottom, right out. There you go. You got these two guys disconnected. All that's free, super easy. That way you don't have to back all this stuff out of here. It takes forever to back this out, then you got to readjust it. Now everything self-adjusts when the engine goes back in. You don't have to deal with any of that. Line out of here for the power steering. Gotta do the squeeze. Pull it back. It's stuck on there. Damn, baby. There's a little retainer right there. You pop that out, and the bottom comes right up and out like that. Once it's out and up, actually this line's compromised. It's getting cut. We're not going to screw with it. It's just the way things go sometimes. There you go. So, and then I'll just slice it down the side like that and peel it off. Yeah, this thing's completely dry rotted. I'm gonna say I'm gonna replace it, but I guarantee I'm just gonna take the extra slack and put it back on. Sometimes the right pliers work better, and sometimes these are just easier. Alright, there is the power steering reservoir is out of the way. So I'm gonna get this wiring harness out of here. So first things first, alternator 12mm nut. We gotta unplug this gray plug on top of the air conditioner. So there's a tab right here. Push this guy all the way down and then peel this guy out. So then that will give you all of this out of the way. Take a picture of these so you know which way they go on. But you got 3 fuel lines and 1 vacuum line that we're gonna have to take care of. So top fuel line, yes, in your eyes. I can guarantee that burns a little bit. There you go. That's all that came out. A couple ounces. If you want, try to catch it. Your battery's out, so you don't have to worry about turning on your ignition or anything like that. So to pump more fuel, the last thing you want to do is that. Next one, give that just a little twist. Break it free. And these things are on there good. Have to work at it a little bit. Yeah, that just splashed gas all over too. twist, like that one. Alright, now these guys are out of the way. Then you still got one vacuum line. Again, I recommend taking a picture of it. We'll have the brake booster line. That brake booster line comes right down there. We'll take him off. We'll over here. Alright, while we're over here, we got this brown connector, a black connector underneath. There is a pin right here on the side. Push those in very hard and then work them out. Same thing with this one down here. Push that in and pull. You gotta work at them a little bit. These will not come out easy. The thing is, this is attached to the motor, so what we're gonna have to do is come back and pull these two bolts out of here so this bracket comes off. There you go. Now this loom can go with the engine. And this pulley loosened up. 12 millimeters. Get these guys loosened up. That's going to attach to the bracket for the air conditioner, so we're going to have to get that out of the way. The green plug for the alternator, there's a clip on the back. You got to press that in. And the bad thing is these things stick really bad, so once you get that pushed in the back, you're going to have to take a screwdriver and pry up on these things to get them to come out. And the bad thing is I'm telling you, man, you do not want to get too aggressive. You just want to slowly work your way around and bring this. It's a pain in the butt to get this thing out, but there you go. We're going to loosen up the adjuster for the alternator. Oh, these are all 12 millimeter. Loosen this guy up. Take just a little bit of tension off the alternator just to make it easy to get that other bolt that goes through the alternator and the air conditioning. 12 millimeter still. There we go. Already got the through bolt out for the alternator. All we got to do now, get the car fixed up out of the way. That's the guy back here that retains, goes around the backside, that keeps it from spinning. All this business back together again. So I know where everything goes. It's just me, but I suggest losing it if you want to, though. Bolts that hold the air conditioning compressor on for this bracket. So one of them is going to be a 14 millimeter back here. I got a swivel socket on there just to make things a little easier to get in there. If you don't, I think the socket's going to round. The socket might round the bolt out. Get this bolt out, and then there's another bolt in front. That's going to be right down here. And then another one right back there. Those are all 14. Yeah, use a swivel. You get a better shot at it. You just don't want to round them off. You round the heads off, man. And then you're going to fight to try to get the bolt out. You might have to easy out it, drill it. Avoid that if you can. I recommend it. Easy one, last one straight up front. If it is the last one. I think there's 3. I don't remember. As soon as I loosen up. Oh no. Here, this is going to be cool because now get this out of here and I'll show you. This will save you a lot of time later. And if you want to do it right, I mean, technically you should have somebody draw all the freon out. Now you don't have to worry about drawing freon out. Didn't take any of the hoses off. So now there is a 4th bolt back there with a swivel socket. I'll show you where he's at. It's a straight shot right down in there. See him right back between there, but I can snake down there with a swivel socket. Oh, crud. Alright, well I can get that out of there when I pull it. I dropped my swivel socket back there. I just put this where the battery was. Take these 2 brackets off for the intercooler. 12 millimeter out of the way, because it's just going to be a pain in the butt when you try to pull the motor. This one also makes it easier to separate the transmission too, in my opinion, if you want my opinion. Maybe if you watch the video this far, maybe you care about my opinion. You just want to watch somebody screw up. And that can happen too. A couple quick things back here we got to take care of. Got to take care of this coolant hose. I got them with a pair of pliers. Careful not to rip them, break them loose. Take your screwdriver, push them on. That's out of there. Next is getting the downpipe bolts loose. There's 6 of them. Makes things a little easier. What you want to do is definitely spray all these down. I already got one of them that I broke off. I want to use something big because you're gonna need it. Because none of these are gonna give up easy. The other thing that helps out big time on this is a ratchet that has a swivel. Because if you use standard ratchet, your standard ratchet is gonna go right on the firewall and it's gonna be a bugger. But this way, it makes it pretty easy. This top one will be easy enough to cut if I need to. And if I ever thought that I wanted to do this in 2.5, 3 hours, I assure you spending 15 minutes on one bolt is not the way to get a job done in 3 hours. Now we're down to the third one. This one's just a nut that goes on the back of it. You can see the nut there, 14 millimeter again. And this is number 4. All right, here's the best go at getting that guy off is 14 millimeter socket, swivel extension, and a 3-inch extension. And you want to fish that dude up there. You gotta get to the point where you can get some leverage on here. Problem is, my ratchet's moving, so I am going to stick a bar up there like this. I'm gonna pry against the ratchet like that just to break this thing loose. Once I get it broke loose, I should be okay. That way the head of the ratchet can't move. Alright, I got it broke loose now. That is the hardest one, and it's probably the one you want to do first. You probably don't want to leave this one to the last. If anybody's got any better ways of getting that out, that would be awesome if they shared it with the group. It's that one I struggle with the most. Next up, we're going to get the starter out of the way, and I'm going to take the bottom bolt out first, and then we'll come back here and take the top bolt out. It's just easier that way. That way we can pick it up and grab it from the top and take it out. Alright, I'm going to start working my way off the trans bolts. They're 14 millimeter. The first one I'm going to take is the bottom side of the starter. It makes it easier to take the top bolt out of the starter, I think anyway. There's one. The next one's going to be a nut and a stud. That one there, you're going to need a swivel. Alright, there's one more bolt right above the drive axle. That one's pretty easy. You can't hardly see it, but there's one more 14 millimeter bolt right here. There we go. Locked on. Good. My birthday wasn't too long ago. My wife was looking for something and asked one of my buddies what I needed, and he said a big 1/2-inch breaker bar ratchet. So that's what she bought me for my birthday, which I really appreciate that. That was awful thoughtful of her. What I was saying about these drive shafts, there's a roll pin in there, and on both sides the roll pins are busted. Kind of odd. Don't know when that happened, but probably a long time ago. Alright, the top 2 bolts are going to be, this one's going to go through the starter. It's also going to hold this ground bracket, all still 14 millimeter, and it'll also give us clearance to get at the slave cylinder for the clutch. I want to get that out of the way too. There it goes. Interesting. I'm surprised that thing seized down there like it did. It's a pretty new starter. Get those 2 slave cylinder bolts out of the way. The back one might have a little tension on it. Hopefully not. Oh, good, it doesn't. The tension on it's hard to get out by hand. And it's a long reach back there, trust me. Alright, so that'll get the slave cylinder out of the way. And it frees up the clutch arm. We'll have to deal with that next. Alright, just got this last 14 millimeter bolt. Trans dipstick. Move that guy out of the way. Make it easier. With any luck, the trans will start to separate a little bit, but I can guarantee there'll be no luck and there'll be no separation in the trans, and I'm going to have to beat it apart. That's going to be the fun part. This is always hard to come apart. I'm going to drive a couple screwdrivers down in here. It's not really the way to do it, but that's how I'm going to do it right now. Just try to get these things broken apart a little bit. broke them apart. I do not recommend driving a screwdriver in there. I didn't really care too much about this car at all, so I didn't have a problem doing this. And important things that need to be done is there's a 10mm Allen screw that goes into the side of the transmission, right down there. That needs to come out. And there's a pin that goes through this fork. This fork has to come out. And without that fork, the fork goes through the throwout bearing. Without that being removed, there's no way that you can get the transmission and the engine separated. Next thing you're gonna do is once that cover is off, you're gonna take a 6mm bolt, run it in there. Make sure you gotta get quite a few threads on there. And then you just pull that pin out, and that pin will just slide out like that. And then when it's out far enough, there you go, you'll hear the fork drop out. Here's an inside the transmission view. You can see through the starter hole where I've got the bolt threaded into the end of the pin. Pin is right here. Pin goes all the way through. The fork, you see the fork there. So what's gonna happen is this will never come apart until you get that pin out of there. So again, pull the pin. You can see where the pin disengages and then comes through. Comes off the fork. You have to pull all the way through and you'll see the fork fall. Note too, you can see the end of this pin right here. See that slot right there? That slot needs to line up with that roll pin that's in there. So when you do reassemble it, that slot has got to go and line up with that roll pin when it's reassembled, or it is not going to work. All right, what it is, I closed the gap on the other side and got it straight. So now I think I'm far enough apart. I'm gonna start coming up a little bit with a cherry picker now. Once you stress your output shaft going into the transmission, that's the last thing you want to do. So you want to be careful and try to pull this straight off like that by coming up slightly and pulling the engine forward. There you go. As not to stress the output shaft too much. I think I'm about there. There's the clutch fork out of the way. I'm still sitting on the output shaft a little bit, so I just need to, there we go, come up a little bit. So I forgot one coolant hose. So on the back here, I got one coolant hose to take off. 8mm again. Loosen up that coolant hose. That's the lower one. It was in the back of the motor. I just didn't see it. My batteries on both my cameras are low. My battery's low. Engine out of Subaru. All right, that guy at the beginning of the video, he was probably a little overzealous thinking he could do this in 2.5 hours. It took me a total of 4 hours to get it out. I did have my advantage is I knew all the tools I needed. I had them in a cart, everything laid out already. I knew the swivel sockets I would need, the extension stuff I need to get some of the hard bolts, like the air conditioning compressor, getting that out of the way, and the downpipe. The downpipe smoked me 35-40 minutes. I had a broken bolt. I had a couple bolts that were hard to get to. I struggled to get that out, so that cost me some time. In the end, like I said, 4 hours to get it out. One thing I would definitely recommend is don't rush it, because if you try to rush taking this thing out, all you're going to do is break bolts, strip stuff out, and in the end, you're going to have to, fix all that stuff and you put it back in. So, biggest time killer for me is if I lose something, I set a wrench down in the wrong spot, that'll smoke me for time. I tore the engine down to figure out what was wrong with it. I'll give you a hint. Definitely a clearance issue. Valves went into the pistons. Anyway, I'm Mike, and thanks for watching 33 Mile Garage, and I will catch you on the next video.